Look, good afternoon, everyone. I have to really say, before I respond to the debate, what a joy it is to be here today, an absolute pleasure. And I get the sense from each and every one of you, thank you to Peter, thank you to David, thank you to Claire, everyone, for really bringing us together, because we are stronger together, as we've just been hearing, actually, from Paul Holmes. But we're stronger when we speak in a united way and we support one another. And that's effectively what CDO is all about. And I, for one, am totally energised by being here today. I do just want to pay tribute to our speakers this afternoon in the debate we've just heard. With the gusto and conviction that we've heard from, speakers ranging from Alex to Kane to Andrea to Mimi and also our MPs as well. And to Stephen, people who are at the grassroots. The party is in safe hands, quite frankly, and the ability to speak up and openly is really what we should cherish and value in the Conservative Party. So I'm thrilled to be here, I really am, and I cannot thank everyone enough for making this happen and for CDO, the value and purpose of CDO. And there's so many points that I do want to actually respond to. I'm going to start off naturally with the grassroots because like you all, I've been around a few years now in the party. I've been an activist for only about 34 years. This is where you can all say you don't believe that at all. But I'm proud of being an activist. I'm proud of my membership of the Conservative Party. I've been a member my entire adult life. And the joy about today is not just that we're back here in Bournemouth. Connor and others mentioned the joy of Bournemouth and conferences, party conferences like this, where we engage, where we reach out, where we absolutely have the right kind of discussion. Because it's so far removed from the Westminster bubble. And look what the Westminster bubble has done for us over the last 12 months, which is another discussion in its own right, which I will come to shortly. But it's because of you that we're here. It is because of you the Conservative Party is that most successful, democratically elected political party in the world. People write books about us, right? About how successful we are. And that's because of you. Because you are the heart and soul, the backbone of our party. We've heard it again and again. Out there, the pouring rain, the cold, delivering leaflets. In freezing cold winters, campaigning in successful general election campaigns where we win 80-seat majorities. You're the ones organising the fundraising events week in, week out, and the famous raffles as well, and I'm always there if you want a raffle gift. But you're on the front line in terms of getting Conservatives elected. And there are some important points about this. You do that not because you're paid to do it or for publicity or for self-promotion. You do it because, as we've heard again and again and again today, you believe in our party, you believe in our values and our ability to transform Britain for the better, to be on that mission to spread freedom, enterprise and opportunity across all parts of the UK and beyond. And I know how hard you work. I've had the greatest privilege in recent weeks and months of campaigning in my own constituency, but also touring the country as well, helping my colleagues get councillors elected. I believe in that, absolutely. I believe in democracy. We all believe in democracy. And of course, when we're out there week in, week out, on the doorsteps, and you know this, you are the ones on the front line facing the criticism, what's going on in Westminster, responding to the tough questions, dealing and hearing with the anger and frustration, often the disappointment of the public, and recognising as well, and we should be honest about this, and I think today has done this, that, at the centre of our party, they need to also be out there much more listening as well. And I think Paul being here today is brilliant because actually it's all about hearing from you, listening and meeting people. Because if we're honest as well, and I've been in government, when you're doing those pieces to camera or going on those highly organised visits or taking a few questions from journalists at press conferences, that is no substitute for the hard graft that you all put in on the doorsteps, the hard graft that is required, knocking on doors, campaigning, day in, day out, delivering leaflets. Because guess what, my friends? That's what wins us votes. It's not just the pieces to camera. And as grassroots activists, of course, we are the ones who listen to and engage and often face the consequences of some of those bad decisions and also the infighting that we have seen in Westminster. And of course, if the centre of the party spent more time with us, listening, engaging, then I think it's fair to say we would not have seen over 1,000 of our friends and colleagues even lose their seats in recent local elections, and dozens of councils fall out of Conservative control. Now, I think it's important that we discuss this, because that's hundreds of hard-working, devoted and experienced public servants no longer able to serve, and that's no fault of their own. That's also a huge loss to us on the front line. That's a loss to frontline Conservative activists up and down the country serving their communities. Now, I am one of the first to thank them for their service, and I'm absolutely sorry that actually it's the errors and the mistakes, sometimes of us in Westminster, and our actions that have cost our party dearly across the country, because some of those whose seats were lost may even be here today. And of course, there are serious repercussions and consequences for this. For the first time in 20 years, my friends, we are no longer the largest party in local government. And that actually has devastating implications for communities, in my view, who are now worse off without having local Conservative representation. So for us, this is a moment of reflection, a time to learn and a time to rebuild. And I genuinely believe, actually, we've got to stop this decline. I believe, I've been married to a Conservative councillor, so obviously, I evangelise about this, and sometimes he would have said that's exactly why, we just need to be out there more and more. Because if we're out there visible, working as public servants, being diligent public servants in our communities, then we will absolutely ensure that the heart of the Conservative Party remains strong and active at the grassroots, and also connected to the MPs and the party as well. But of course, we have to reflect upon the last 12 months, and we've heard this today as well. I know colleagues Jacob and others have spoken about this. We haven't covered ourselves in glory. And in fact, some parts of Westminster and colleagues have done a better job at damaging our party than the opposition, even the left-wing campaign groups, the civil service, which, we all struggle with day in, day out. And even, I'm afraid, some of those in the media that want to distort and make life difficult for us. We have seen, as discussed today, the ousting of a democratically elected, in fact, our most electorally successful Prime Minister since Margaret Thatcher. And we should pay tribute, actually, not just to Boris, but to all of you at the grassroots, because I'm no fan of December general elections, but if we can have them again and again and get 80-seat majorities, and quite frankly, it's worth it. But we can only do that through strong leadership, and we can only do that when strong leadership motivates the base, which is all of you. He was a man that got Brexit done, led our country through a global pandemic, and of course, delivered on the people's priorities. Now, I say this for an important reason. Being democratically elected matters. It matters to us as the party grassroots, but it also is important to reflect that, colleagues in Westminster, by making the changes that took place last year, have also, and we've heard this today, have turned their back on the membership and effectively broken that golden thread in terms of the democracy from the bottom of the party right up to the top. And we have to rebuild that, we really do. And I fundamentally believe in that. I've spoken about this for so long. Over the last 10 years, in fact, I believe in democratisation in our party. And it is obvious that you are all angered. Our members are angry about what has happened. And it has undermined that famous bond of trust. Trust has been the word that's been used again and again today. That trust between our membership and the leadership of our party. Our party's reputation is suffering because of that as well. And we've been taking a battering with the general public. And of course, with that, this has repercussions on the pledges, what we are, who we stand for, all the promises and the opportunities that we offered back in 2019, and now virtually look as if they're being rewritten. And that once-in-a-generation opportunity the people have given and trusted us to transform our country, as Jacob said earlier on today when it comes to EU matters, looks like it's being diluted and frittered away. And what, at the end of the day, radical, innovative, Conservative manifesto that we all got behind back in 2019, which reflected our values and our beliefs. We can't let that be confined to a corner somewhere. We have to stand up and continue to champion that. And I think in good news, folks, that's exactly why we're all here today, because we're committed to rebuilding, not just at a national level, but standing up and making sure our voices are heard at the grassroots, making it more democratic, fighting for the survival of our party and our values. And this is important because if we don't, no one's going to do it on our behalf. That is a fact. So to Peter's point, we do need to take back control, and it is right that our voices are heard. And with that, as Paul has touched on in the debate just now, ensuring that we're heard, the party and its leadership are held accountable through the democratic structures that John has been championing for decades. And I really pay tribute to John Strafford. John has been an inspiration to me as well. He really has. And I remember back in the day when I joined the Conservative Party a long time ago, John was being spoken about then in terms of democratic structures, and it is thanks to the convening that we are now able to talk about these reforms so that our members have a greater say in developing the policies, a greater say to select our candidates, as was discussed today as well, for elections, and not have local associations just being imposed upon and put upon again and again and again. And of course, that is about respect. That is about that golden thread and the respect between the party nationally and the grassroots. Now, all of this matters because at the end of the day, I've always said our members are the most authentic voice of the Conservative Party. You stand up for what we believe in, you advocate day in, day out. Our values matter more than ever before. And also, in my view, we do have to stand firm on this because we risk losing votes if we forget who we are and what we stand for. Our country faces some difficult challenges, and all countries around the world are challenged right now. The consequences of a global pandemic, inflationary pressures, and of course we're now witnessing as well the impact of Putin's war on Ukraine. But look, my friends, the solution to these challenges is not more state control. It's not more spending, it's not more taxes, which sadly are featuring in our way of life right now. In the 1970s and 80s, we faced colossal economic challenges back then, and the solution was not more socialism or greater state control. In fact, the solution was Margaret Thatcher, as we all know. The solution was robust, pro-enterprise, free market, property-owning democracy that Margaret Thatcher promised and delivered. That, my friends, is the reason why I joined the Conservative Party. That is exactly why you are all here today as well. And you were inspired to join the party, motivated to work for the party and support the party. And with that, we must never forget, and this has come up again, and Mimi mentioned this earlier on, as Conservatives, we must never forget that we are here to serve the public and do so in a way in which that promotes freedom, enterprise and opportunity. Because that's what separates us from Labour. The public will not vote Conservative because they want higher taxes, high spending and high borrowing. They'll vote Conservative because they expect us to keep taxes down, back enterprise, and defend Britain's hard-working, law-abiding, silent majority. So we need to get back on track to deliver that historic mission of 2019 and unleash that amazing potential that we've heard about today of the people and of our country. And we are at our strongest, and we know we're at our strongest and our most successful when delivering Conservative values and Conservative policies in government. And values matter, because if we don't stand up for values, for freedom, democracy, for capitalism, I can tell you now, as Kane has put it so succinctly this afternoon, bad ideas take their place. History shows the terrible costs of bad ideas. Millions of lives were extinguished under fascism and communism. And even today, many people still live in tyranny, unable to enjoy the most basic freedoms. Progress is not inevitable, and countries can go backwards. We see it with Ukraine and Putin. We see it with China. Look at their presence in this country, stealing our intellectual property, having its spies infiltrate our parliament, our public policy and our economy, undermining our values every single day. And here in Britain, while Sir Keir Starmer tries to present himself as a moderate, behind that North London veneer, the Labour benches in the House of Commons are still filled to the brim with the hard left, Britain-hating, criminal-supporting socialists that wanted to see Corbyn as Prime Minister, Britain forced back into the UK, and would cancel out our freedoms. Make no mistake, if we don't get a grip, we could end up surrendering to that kind of socialist nonsense. And that is why we must fight for our values. And it's not just about ensuring that our party is successful. We have to make sure that our country is successful and prosperous, and the opportunities for the next generation also come through. Time and time again, capitalism has proven the best way, indeed the only way to lift people out of poverty, to raise their aspiration, while socialism has failed, and it is totally and utterly incompatible with freedom. It denies people choice. It strangles creativity. And when governments control the economy, they always end up controlling and oppressing people in other ways. A government that tells you how to spend your money will also tell you what to say and how to think. And quite frankly, given that we've now forgotten the economic facts of life, it's no surprise that the bad ideas are taking hold across our country and institutions. The left are pursuing their own agenda of political correctness and political correction, as well as woke. And this is now resulting in our institutions dominated by left-wing groups, parroting nonsense on theories from race to sex education to rewriting history, and using this as a basis to make policy. This nonsense and these distractions are created by the left. And it's obvious as to why. Because starting arguments about pronouns and woke, or banging on about unconscious bias, or debating what a woman is, and telling us how and what to think, is a lot easier for the left than doing the really hard job of governing and representing the people and standing up for public service. And we are the ones that has to stop this, and we are the ones that have to call out these bad ideas, reject them, and stand up for what we believe in. So, my friends, the good news is, and there is plenty of good news, we have been here before, and it is strong Conservative leaders that have turned this around in the past. When Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister, she showed what a strong Conservative woman could do and could deliver for Britain and bring prosperity to so many. She brought back that same sense of optimism and can-do spirit that our friend Ronald Reagan also brought back in America. They turned their countries around and they took communism, they took it on together, and they stood up for those fundamental values that we believe in. This is a similar moment. It also calls for strong, renewed, democratic Conservative leadership. It is time for us to come together again, because hope has been in short supply in recent months and years, and we are the ones from the grassroots to bring it back to the top of our party. The UK is the greatest country in the history of the world. There's no doubt about that. We must throw off the shackles of these terrible bad ideas, the indoctrination of our young, the woke and cancel culture that has been spoken about today, and rediscover our values that made us great, and the values that are still shared by the majority of the British public day in, day out, that silent majority that we represent and we must stand up for. A belief in our freedom, including freedom of speech, individual liberty and free markets, a belief in democracy. And friends, that starts here. And it starts in our party by reigniting democracy in our party and empowering you, our membership, to have that say, to stand up for what we believe in, to rebuild the grassroots. It'll make our party, our government, and our country stronger. And importantly, it'll secure Britain's destiny as a beacon of freedom and enterprise and opportunity for all. I want to really thank you all for everything that you are all doing, and Peter, David, Claire, everyone for your commitment. You know, the message is very simple. We do want to take back control. There's no doubt about that. But we want to ensure that our values are the values that continue to inspire generations to come again and again and again, and that the Conservative Party continues to be that most successful, democratically elected political party across the world, so we can see Conservative governments again and again running our country for decades to come. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing, my friends. It's great to see you today, it really is. Thank you for all your support. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priti, for a wonderful barnstorming speech we expect of you, and it's great to have you here, really, really good. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the first debate, rebuilding our grassroots. We're now moving on to a second debate, which is reconnecting with Britain.